First up is how to turn your Tav into a vampire in Baldur's Gate 3. This permanent transformation grants you the class action Vampire Bite. Suck the blood from a living creature to regain hit points. This deals 2d4 piercing damage, but not if the target is sleeping or if you are hiding when it is used. Also, after using Vampire Bite, you get the condition Happy. This amazing condition grants +1 to all attack rolls, saving throws, and most ability checks. It's actually funny, the tooltip says Astarion's vampiric hunger has been temporarily sated, even if it's your Tav who has the condition. It just shows how rare becoming a vampire must be. Now, this condition lasts until long rest, which is amazing, and your target will become bloodless until long rest, which grants -1 to attack rolls, saving throws, and most ability checks. And like Astarion's hidden undead bonuses, you'll gain those too. For example, Spell Rot, which affects characters in the Ancient Lair, causes you to take 2d6 necrotic damage anytime you cast a spell per spell level while you have the condition. That is unless you are undead, in which case it won't even appear as a condition. This never afflicted Astarion, and once you become a vampire, it will no longer afflict you. Things like Undead Ward Aura, which grant resistances to allied undead, never actually worked on Astarion, so they will not work on your Vampire Tav. And the only way to become a vampire is actually to romance Astarion. Help him become a vampire ascendant and then have him turn you into a vampire. So if you want to become a vampire, you need to be ready to become Astarion's little juice box. Now, this process is actually not very easy. There are a number of pitfalls to avoid while trying to romance Astarion, and you need to make sure to long rest often so as not to miss any key dialogue which advances the romance. In Act 1, you'll need to increase Astarion's approval of you through things like declining to help people, helping lae'zel interrogate Zoru in the Grove, baaing at the sheep or the redcaps in the sunlit wetlands, acquiring Leviatar's love in the Shattered Sanctum, giving him the necromancy of Thay, walking in on the bugbear and the ogre in the barn at the Blighted Village, and generally asking for compensation if you do end up helping people. Doing these things will increase your approval with Astarion enough that at the end of the Act 1 celebration, you can spend the night with him. After that, in Act 2, you'll need to make sure to talk to Araj Abludra and stand up for Astarion, letting him make his own decision to not drink Araj's blood and long rest after that encounter. Later on, when you encounter Raphael outside the Grand Mausoleum, you'll need to accept and complete the bargain with Raphael to learn what the scars are on Astarion's back. Long rest after defeating Yrgir and fulfilling your end of the bargain, and this long rest is critical in order to progress the dialogue with Astarion to be able to kiss him and ask about the relationship. Even though Astarion is dismissive, this is as far as the romance can go in Act 2. But if you miss this long rest dialogue, you won't be able to romance Astarion further in Act 3, and you'll actually get some pretty harsh dialogue, so make sure to long rest before the end of Act 2. Then in Act 3, you can head straight for the Tsar Palace and Cazador's dungeon. Make sure to avoid talking to the other spawn, as it can actually make Astarion change his mind about trying to ascend. And then finally, after you defeat Cazador and help Astarion ascend, long rest and you'll gain the dialogue with Astarion asking for him to make you a vampire. The next morning, you'll be a vampire with Vampire Bite and all the benefits of being a vampire Astarion had before he ascended, which is pretty awesome. And next up, this video is sponsored by the Stone of Madness. The Stone of Madness is a real-time tactical stealth game set in an 18th century Spanish monastery. 5 prisoners pool their skills and resources to face their phobias, stave off insanity, uncover the mysteries of the monastery, and find a way to escape. It blends intricate tactical mechanics with psychological survival elements. Players must navigate the sinister corridors of a decrepit monastery, balancing their characters' unique strengths and debilitating disorders to achieve freedom. Players control a team of 5 distinct characters, each possessing unique abilities that help overcome various obstacles. There's Leonora, a fierce former inmate with expertise in assassination and lockpicking. Then there's Agnes, a sly witch who uses dark magic to manipulate her surroundings. Next, there's Alfredo, a committed priest who relies on his faith to distract foes and uncover hidden truths. Then there's Amelia, a clever young girl whose small size allows her to sneak through narrow spaces and pickpocket. And finally, there's Eduardo, a quiet, towering figure with immense strength capable of breaking down walls and crafting useful tools. The mental well-being of each character is critical. As they face challenges, their psychological states deteriorate, leading to disorders that'll affect their abilities. The game also operates on a day-night rhythm, which changes the atmosphere and introduces new obstacles. The monastery even shifts in response to players' actions. There are 2 distinct campaign choices that significantly alter the course of the story. The game's hand-drawn art and dark themes draw significant inspiration from the works of Francisco Goya and Hieronymus Bosch. In the Middle Ages, people believed that a stone of madness in the brain was responsible for mental illness. Bosch is painting the extraction of the stone of madness, which shows the surgical removal of the stone served as a major influence on the story of the Stone of Madness. Will you escape, or will you be consumed by madness? Find out when the Stone of Madness launches on January 28th. Click the link in the description to pre-order today. And next up is a secret Astarion scene everyone missed. In Act 3, during a long rest, Astarion's fellow spawn will appear in the camp attempting to kidnap him and bring him back to Cazador. These spawn are weak and easily defeated, which is why this scene is so rare. If you actually let them take Astarion. If you let them down him, they'll kidnap him, instantly bringing him to the Tsar Palace. After he's gone, you can slay the other spawn, at which point your Tav will have some actually really rare dialogue saying, it's best to just rest. There's no point in going after vampires at night. Once you head to bed, you'll immediately trigger a rare cutscene with Godi and Astarion. Let's watch it.
A familiar stink fills your nostrils. You're back in the kennel, where you spent 10 days being tortured by Cazador's sadistic servant, Godi.
Nasty little runaway. But you always find your way back to Godi. If I had my way, I'd saw off your legs. That'd put a stop to your wandering. But the Master says no. Says he needs all of your blood on the inside for the mass. But he needs you obedient too. No barking, no biting, no struggling. A well-behaved little doggy. You think you're free? Then let's tighten your chain.
All that you've seen since the crash, all the wonders and horrors suddenly seem inconsequential. Only one thing matters. Cazador, your master, your lord, your creator. His will tightens around you once again, and it is as if you never escaped him.
And then finally, you're going to be faced with a saving throw, and even if you fail the saving throw, your tadpole will come to your rescue and shatter your bond, letting you battle Godi, which isn't too hard of a fight. And next up is a newly discovered undead minion that is easily the best in the entire game because of its total immunity to physical damage. This minion is the Justiciar Crusader. This massive level 7 undead Justiciar will only appear when the action Permit Passage is used by the central umbral tremor in the Gauntlet of Shar outside of Balthazar's room. After a couple of rounds, this umbral tremor will allow the Justiciar Crusader to be summoned. Now, most players probably miss this Justiciar because that's probably the first umbral tremor that they destroy. Now, once the Justiciar Crusader appears, you'll need to use Control Undead on him, which means you'll need to be at least level 7 as an Oathbreaker Paladin. Once you've got the undead Justiciar Crusader, he'll eventually cast Subsume Shadow, which turns the Crusader into their umbral form, granting an additional 1d8 necrotic damage, an additional attack each turn, and immunity to non-magical damage. This condition also has no set duration, meaning once it's cast, it is on permanently. Not only does this make this minion incredibly durable, but also incredibly cool looking. The Justiciar Crusader also has Overwhelming Grief, which inflicts Call of the Dark Lady, which deals necrotic damage over time. With its high damage and incredible durability, the Justiciar Crusader is one of the best targets for Control Undead in the entire game. And next up is a hidden interaction with Circle of Bones. Circle of Bones is a rare headgear that can be found on the corpse of Balthazar near the end of Act 2. Circle of Bones provides a 20-foot aura called Undead Ward, granting all allied undead within this radius resistance to slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning damage. However, what it doesn't say is that it also applies to allied fiends. This means that by wearing the Circle of Bones, you'll also provide these resistances to Shovel, the cheeky Quasit, if you found her in the basement of the Blighted Village, and both Imps and Quasits if you are a Pact of the Chain Warlock. The Cambion you can summon from the Infernal Rapier from Will's personal quest also benefits from Circle of Bones, along with Planner Ally Cambion if you have a level 11 Cleric, since both of these are classified as Fiends. Now surprisingly, even though Astarion sometimes benefits from conditions that affect undead, he's actually not affected by Circle of Bones, and neither will your Tav be if you choose to become a vampire. And next up is how to easily pass the Faith Leap trial. After patch 7 removed the method to just click and have your character auto run to the end, we needed to figure out a new method. This method just requires a light source and might even be an intended way to solve the puzzle. Once you have your light source in hand, such as equipping a torch, casting light on yourself, or produce flame, go into the overhead view and zoom into the darkness. You can just barely see a small pinpoint of light, which is marking the center of an invisible tile. By clicking on each pin of light, you can actually navigate your way through the Faith Leap trial successfully. It's actually just that simple. And next up is how to fart your way to a new weapon. As a bard, you have the option to let out a huge fart when in dialogue with Akabi at the Circus of the Last Days. If you succeed, then you'll distract him and win the jackpot, letting you teleport to the jungle of Chult and acquire the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel and Nyrulna. This is an alternative to pickpocketing his ring from him to win the jackpot. The green smoke behind you as you let out your fart is hilarious, but it also begs the question, would Shart herself if she failed the roll to let out a huge fart? This had to be tested for science, so after failing the roll, Shart actually does not shart herself. Akabi just says shh and is not distracted by the fart. So no sharding, unfortunately. But very interesting that a bard doesn't need to steal the ring in order to win the jackpot. And next up, can you summon Vecna at the Murder Tribunal? Now, we all know that if you are playing as the Dark Urge and sever Gale's hand in Act 1 while he's trapped in the portal, then you can bring his hand to the Murder Tribunal in Act 3 and actually see his spirit summoned. So can the same be done for Vecna? In Act 3, within the Circus of the Last Days, you can actually win the other hand of Vecna as a consolation prize from Akabi the Genie. But who is Vecna? Well, Vecna was once a human king and lich who ascended to godhood. His hand was a powerful and evil artifact that granted its wearer access to supernatural strength and powerful spells. So Vecna's other hand is actually a joke that instead of that powerful evil artifact, you just got the useless hand. But if you take this hand over to the Murder Tribunal, could you actually summon the spirit of Vecna? Well, I schlepped my Tav over there with the other hand of Vecna in tow, and very disappointingly, Vecna could not be summoned. And next up is how to unlock a secret trader. This secret trader actually sells an item that gives you a condition until long rest that makes you immune to Tasha's hideous laughter, and an item that is the equivalent of disguise self. This trader is Zara the Mummy in the Circus of the Last Days. If you talk to Zara, she'll basically make some mumbling mummy noises, and you could pass an insight check to gain access to her wares, but you could also use detect thoughts and read Zara's mind to learn that she's trying to sell you face paint. However, you could also just select trade from the menu on the left and skip all of this, but it is neat to hear Zara's actual voice through detect thoughts. The rare face painting kit will grant you immunity to Tasha's hideous laughter through the clown face paint condition, and the disguise kit lets you disguise self once per stack of the item. It's pretty neat that these items exist, and most players probably miss them. And next up are some extremely rare items that most players miss: the Moon Devotion robes and Jonal's gloves. These items can be found on Isabel's body. Since most players probably don't slay Isabel, they probably end up missing these items. It is possible to acquire these items on a good playthrough though if you turn on non-lethal attacks in Act 3, carry her away from Dame Ayland, then knock her out and loot her. The Moon Devotion robes grant Produce Flame and Lunar Bulwark. Lunar Bulwark is mage armor essentially, but while having mage armor and wearing the robe, you'll deal 1d4 radiant damage to any target who you succeed a saving throw against. The robes also grant advantage on Constitution saving throws and saving throws +1. Not the best robes ever, but one that many players probably miss. I actually tested casting some spells on Shadowheart while she was wearing these robes, and it appears that the 1d4 radiant damage never triggered against me when she succeeded the saving throw, so it looks like these robes don't actually work, which I'm not not too surprised about since most players probably don't even ever use them. As for Janel's gloves, they automatically cast Lesser Restoration when the wearer becomes blinded, paralyzed, or poisoned. This actually sounds pretty cool since it basically means you're immune to those conditions at least once per long rest. However, after testing them, even after getting poisoned, lae'zel did not self-cast Lesser Restoration like the gloves said she would. So these gloves also do not appear to be working as intended. The +1 to saving throws did appear in the combat log, however the attribution was blank. It was kind of just an open and closed parentheses, so I think that confirms that these gloves are also a bit buggy. And that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and one final reminder that the Stone of Madness launches on January 28th, so click the link in the description to pre-order today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.